Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Voice of the Valleys yet again with your host, friendly neighbourhood far-right thug, Mr. George Cresswell. Hope we're all doing well. Hope we're all having a fantastic morning, afternoon, evening, night, wherever we are. So, got a few things to go over today. At the start of Sodom and Gomorrah Awareness Month, we have Sodom and Gomorrah on the streets of Paris. We have more Welsh government outright incompetence and, in my opinion, evilness. And then we're going to finish off today with more admittances from the British state about the state of our prisons, dispelling and cancelling the people who have ever pushed the lie that the ancient Britons were black, and finally a nice bit of comeuppance on this part of a lefty woke lunatic who find out you cannot just call people in public whatever the hell you want without consequence when you have no base for it. So, ladies and gentlemen, I mentioned before that it is the 1st of June today, the start of what I'm now going to be calling Sodom and Gomorrah Awareness Month. Because, you know, if you're familiar with the story of Sodom and Gomorrah from the book of Genesis, it's not exactly a very positive story, to say the least. To say the least, it is, in words, one of the most depraved situations you could describe. You can quite easily put yourself into the mind of the entity that would then decide, you know what, this civilization needs to just be restarted. We need to forget about this. We need to hit the reset button on this. Anyway, not speaking in terms about that. But we're seeing Sodom and Gomorrah on the streets of the UK, on the streets of all the Western world, especially out in America the last 4 years, with what would have been the gayest administration we've ever seen. But ironically, I want you to have a look at this now, ladies and gentlemen. This is Birmingham Pride Parade from this year, apparently. And I just want you to note that how actually depressing it kind of looks. The person who posted this is just observing and saying this is just all so sad. And it is sad. Should be feeling sad for these people, especially the ones that have clearly been taken there and done all this, whether it is in their will or not, but are being paraded, quite literally, by relatives or friends or whatever, makes you wonder if they have any choice in the matter. So to mark off Sodom and Gomorrah Awareness Month, not only with what we're seeing out in Paris at the moment, which we'll be going over in a moment, but this is the kind of stuff we're now going to be lambasted with for this entire month. I cannot wait.
Give us a wave, everybody. It's lovely to see you, Birmingham. Are you seeing everybody down there? Is this the most iconic?
It looks so depressing. Everyone is so flat and depressing. If you wonder why, if you covered in our last episode, ladies and gentlemen, why the police end up in the state that they're in, obviously they're either going along with it because they want to, or they're forced to go along with it. And it makes it quite easy to see with the level of indoctrination that they are put through, how they can then turn up to a wellness check of a teenage girl and say, let her rot. Yes, that actually happened. Go check out the last episode. Mind Birmingham. Oh no. This with these supposed charities backing political initiatives. That's very interesting, isn't it? They'll have a bit of a look into Mind, I think. Everyone looks so sad. Be kind, be strong, be you. All of these phrases, right? Have you ever noticed that people's mental health seem to be getting worse and worse and worse the more we say these things? I have a mental health epidemic at the moment, but the more we say these things, the more we try and pride things that we know are degenerate, the more we feel worse. Speaking of degenerate, looking on screen, ladies and gentlemen, you have a bunch of so-called men, I believe, with all of these different coloured dog fetish masks on. Oh, God. And it's just perpetually being stuck in this infantile state. I mean, this guy that came up to the camera just now and made this act and barked. That's the kind of stuff you can excuse it on the playground when you're like 5, 6 years old. But these people now not only parading around their sexual fetishes, but it's just showing that, you know, when are they're going to take the time to actually grow up and mature a little bit. Very, very sad indeed. But at least they get to keep themselves relatively anonymous. At least they get to keep themselves relatively anonymous. Have you ever wondered, ladies and gentlemen, how we have all these pride initiatives now? We have all of these different things that are supposedly meant to make people feel better, and people seem to just constantly be feeling worse. It's almost like all of it's contrary to human nature, isn't it? Hey, don't think about that, ladies and gentlemen. How all of this stuff, we're being pushed to stuff, what were the slogans on that banner? Slogans on the banner, ladies and gentlemen. I won't be pulling it back up on screen, but the slogans on the banner. What was this one? It's just a Pride Birmingham banner. So we have be bold, be brave, be kind, be strong, be you. If you're not seeing, ladies and gentlemen, why pride is often the number one, if you want to use the term sin, or the number one pitfall that people fall into, this is why, and we've named an entire movement after it, because what if actually, and this is assuming that there's an objective standard to go off of, what if you're exactly not a very good person? What if you're not a very good person? Should you be bold? Should you be strong? Should you be you? Would you tell Ted Bundy that he should be strong? He should be bold? He should be you? He should be kind? Now, I'm all for being kind. I'm all for being like empathetic, you know, to a certain extent. As much as I'm having a laugh at these people's expense at the moment. Because these people are going through a lot of things. People are going through some suffering, but they're denying often denying the cause and also then denying the solution to it, which is that they need to cast off these things. They need to cast off these things. Playing more into these things is actually imprisoning them more and more and more. It's a bit like vice, a bit like addiction, whatever it may be. It feels freeing when you do it for the first time, but sooner or later, the more and more you do it, often the more hits you need, the more stimulus you require with what it is that you're addicted to. Soon enough, it goes from being free to you being imprisoned to this thing. These people have become imprisoned to their ideology. It's that simple. People have come imprisoned to glorifying themselves, and that's a really, really bad place to be in. That's a really, really bad place to be in. Make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen. So we've got a whole month now to look forward to this. As you can imagine, the posts from UK Labour has already gone out on social media. Happy Pride Month. This is going to be fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. But like I said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be calling this Sodom and Gomorrah Awareness Month. Because, I don't know if you saw, Paris currently is looking like a war zone. It is looking like a war zone at the moment, or at least it was yesterday evening. Jack Posobiec, for example, who was on X recently, he's actually in the country. He was in France, and he put up a post saying, "I had a very bad feeling about what was going to happen tonight," because he's been in Poland recently, and he went over to France with his family. And thank God for him, he got himself into the hotel early, and they actually locked it. They actually locked the hotel down, and you had to use intercom to get in. For the reasons that I'm going to be showing you now. So the Champions League final was last night, and PSG, I can't remember if it was Inter Milan or AC Milan, won 5-0. It should surprise you that one of PSG's prime supporters, by the way, prime sponsors, is Qatar. Should not surprise you at all. But after this, for some reason, much like as what happened after Marine Le Pen had her election victory stolen from her in France a good couple of months ago. And after that, after Macron decided that he was going to ally himself to make coalitions with actual communists, actual flat-out communists he was going to ally himself with, France then burned. There was riots, far-left riots. Obviously, it's always at the moment far-left riots, unless it's just regular British people with a little bit of civil disobedience, rioting. and stuff like that, then they're all lumped as far right. You know, concerned parents in the aftermath of a heinous attack in Southport, they're all lumped as far right. And then you have far left riots that nobody, no media or anything wants to report on or get to the truth of the matter of. But you have here Paris looking like a war zone, ladies and gentlemen. And again, happy Sodom and Gomorrah Awareness Month. And what do you notice? I can't imagine the police. Can't imagine the police are really going to be able to do anything. But what do you notice, for example, if we go back to the start? But a lot of the people running past the camera in a moment. Interesting, isn't it? We have another clip, ladies and gentlemen. So last night, Paris Saint-Germain beat Inter Milan 5-0 in the UEFA Champions League final. African and Middle Eastern migrants use this as an excuse to go rioting. A car hit a group of people. From another video I saw, 2 appear dead. There are reports of lynching as well, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm just going to, because this video is a little bit short, there's a French caption in one of these videos, which I'm not skilled enough in my French. I'm going to translate it for you now. Okay, so I'm not sure what the caption says. I put it into translate, and it came up with something completely incoherent. So I'm not sure. Maybe you guys obviously will know it, and you can translate it better than I can. But this is more footage from what was happening in Paris last night, where again 2 people appeared dead. There've been reports of lynching. You do have to wonder how much more are the people of Europe going to take.
Allah ya Rabbi. No. Allah ya Rabbi.
It's truly awful stuff going on. There's more footage, ladies and gentlemen, because we also have, as you can imagine, it's not just, you know, rioting, people getting attacked and stuff like that. There's been reports of looting, which is now coming to you courtesy of, I'm not sure where this is from Update News. And shops were looted last night as well, and have evidence of that, ladies and gentlemen. So you can see here, gangs trying to break into what appears to be a convenience store. So it looks to be there looks to be police on the scene at this point. Yeah, who's to be surprised, you know? You have they're quite clearly coming in and out of the store here. These quite clearly aren't the police. They're wearing football jerseys. So like I said, Sodom and Gomorrah Awareness Month off to a great start. And what do you notice about the flags that are waving in some of these places where cars are on fire, where again the sky is obviously is dark here anyway, because this was you know, at night when this was happening. But what do you notice, for example, in this clip, ladies and gentlemen, about the flags that you see and the kind of people that you see? What flags do you notice celebrating the terror, celebrating the carnage, celebrating the destruction? In case you missed it, ladies and gentlemen, when the clip replays in a minute, we have a flag, for example, here. Where is it? Here. Gentleman appears to be holding a Moroccan flag. But you can quite clearly see, as this gentleman runs past in a moment, that distinctive red triangle with green, white, and black. Oh, what flag might that be? What flag might this be, ladies and gentlemen? I know it's hard to see in this freeze frame here. You have there it is. You can see the red triangle, and you can see quite clearly the green, the white, and the black here, which you can see a bit more clearly there. So we have the Palestinian watermelon flag celebrating death, destruction, rioting, looting, Sodom and Gomorrahizing in Paris, because of course we do. This is what they do. This is what these kinds of people do. This is what these guys are most proficient at. When they say we need to bring over the best and brightest, this is what they mean. We need the best and brightest to globalize the intifada in our countries that we never asked for. We never asked for. Here's more footage, ladies and gentlemen, because nothing was off limits last night whatsoever. Not bus stops, not anything. And of course, these people walking around with weapons and stuff like that. Anything they can find, a little bit of glass on the floor can constitute a weapon, metal bar, whatever it may be. As I said many times before, we often say that countries in Europe are safe countries. And for people like this, they most certainly are, because politicians will bend the knee. They'll do anything please and plead and all of this stuff. They won't do anything that protects the French or the German or the Polish government will. The Hungarian government will. They'll protect their own. But if you're an Austrian, you're an Austrian person. You got no chance. So that's what I mean. It's a safe country if you're a foreign terrorist. It's not a safe country if you're just a regular Frenchman or a regular German or a regular, British person. And of course, who's going to foot the damage for all of this? Who's going to foot the bill for all of this damage? Are these Africans and Middle Easterners? Of course, it's going to be the French taxpayer. How much more are they going to take, do you reckon? How much more are the people of Europe going to take from these wannabe jihadis and stuff like that before eventually they start taking matters into their own hands? Because it is going to happen eventually. Then we're going to see another French Civil War, another French Revolution. Diversity is our strength, mind you guys. Diversity is our strength. Look how happy they are. They're destroying the countries that we've been told, mind, that these people are fleeing persecution, people are fleeing war, all of this stuff. Now, just do a little hypothetical with me, ladies and gentlemen. If you were fleeing persecution, fleeing war, fleeing something which is going to pose a significant threat to the safety of yourself, the safety of your family and stuff like that, the safety of your life, all things like that, and people helped you, you in theory would be very grateful to those people, would you not? If you were, if you were being chased through the streets by a gang and you managed to turn a corner and somebody pulled you into their house so that you could... Sorry, guys, I just want to know what that was. So that you could escape and they never found you and you were made secure because of that. Or, a country offered you asylum because they could see that the government in the country is committing atrocities on a scale never seen before, genocide or an ethnic cleansing, whatever it is. And they say, look, you can come here, you can, be safe here. Maybe not permanently, but even just temporarily, you'll be safe here. Your family will be safe here, like the case of the Afrikaners in America at the moment. Your theory would be very grateful, and in the case of the Afrikaners, they very much are, and you can see that. Are these people grateful? Are the people that came here and raped potentially over 1 million young girls grateful? Are the people that have come here and engaged themselves in British politics, for example, to upend the entire political system and turn it into an Islamic country grateful? When we were told that we were bringing them in because they're asylum seekers, when in reality, they're economic migrants and in many instances, outright foreign, violent invaders. And over 1,000 of them came across the channel yesterday in one day alone. This is the reality. I know you may not want to see it. I know you may not want to talk about it. But this is the reality. Common phrase that a lot of people will say in regards to this is first they come for the Saturday people, and then they come for the Sunday people. And in many instances, they're still trying to come for the Saturday people. By that we mean the Jews, ladies and gentlemen, if you're familiar with that phrase. And the Sunday people refers to Christians. And obviously, culturally at the very least, still at the moment, these people at least will view it, will view Britain, will view France, will view Spain, will view Germany, will view all of the countries of Europe as Christian countries, and therefore they need to be conquered because they need to expand the caliphate. So you may be wondering where that phrase comes from. First they come for the Saturday people, then they come for the Sunday people. Well, the Jewish Sabbath, ladies and gentlemen, celebrated, or observed rather, from sunset on a Friday to sunset on a Saturday. So it goes through the majority of the Saturday. Okay, that's the Sabbath day. So that's why they're called the Saturday people, because that's when one of their holy days occurs. And obviously the holy day for Christians is a Sunday. That is the holy day for Christians. So first they come for the Saturday people, then they come for the Sunday people. And make no mistake, even if you're a devout, staunch atheist, these people do not care. These people do not care. They will see you all as the same. They will see you all as the same. Because you're all part of the same culture, you're all part of the same people, and you have this one common thing that even if you personally disagree with, they don't have to care. They will lump you all in together. They will lump us all in together as infidels. So be ready, ladies and gentlemen. It's Paris today. Might be Cardiff, Swansea, or, as we see many other instances, any country where we have very large amounts of, you guessed it, diversity. So anyway, now going on to the Welsh government, the truly shameful Welsh government. So, biggest thing at the moment with the Welsh government is they want to do everything possible to impoverish the Welsh people themselves, enrich themselves and make things all better for themselves with every initiative that they want to put through at taxpayer expense. All the while turning Wales into what's known as a nation of sanctuary at the cost of over £50 million, which I've told you about before. But here we have the Welsh government, for example, ladies and gentlemen. I think we've covered this clip before, but I can't remember if I've covered it. A lot of the people in this clip you'll see here are going to be bringing up now in future clips across the rest of this episode. But this is a gentleman quizzing Eluned Morgan, I believe, on the Wales's status as not as a Welsh country, but as a nation of sanctuary.
Will the First Minister make a statement on Wales's status as a nation of sanctuary?
The Welsh Government is committed to our vision of Wales as a nation of sanctuary, which aims to support people seeking sanctuary to fully contribute to Welsh life. We're committed to harnessing the opportunities which migration brings to help our economy and our communities to thrive.
First Minister,
I'm going to pause that a second, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to pause that a second, just because, again, important to note. Communities thriving, ladies and gentlemen. Communities thriving. Again, the minimum is going to cost, ladies and gentlemen, for a nation of sanctuary plan is about £50 million, thereabouts, about £53 million, I think. So again, Eluned Morgan, in her own words.
The Welsh Government is committed to our vision of Wales as a nation of sanctuary, which aims to support people seeking sanctuary to fully contribute to Welsh life.
To fully contribute to Welsh life. Here are people seeking sanctuary that want to fully, again, contribute to Parisian life. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, you can never hate your government enough. You can never hate your government enough.
We're committed to harnessing the opportunities which migration brings to help our economy and our communities to thrive.
First Minister, over the past 50 years in Wales, I've joined with and supported refugees from Chile after the fascist coup by General Pinochet in the 70s. I've worked with and I've supported Kurdish refugees persecuted and fighting for a homeland. Students and
When are they going to work with the Welsh that are fighting for their homeland? It does make you wonder, when are they going to fight for the Welsh? Fight with the Welsh fighting for their homeland? Oh, wait. That would actually be quite politically hard to do. Because the Welsh are not happy with these people right now. They're not happy with the people that have betrayed them. So why would they want to help the Welsh people to retain their homeland? You have to wonder.
refugees from Iraq, persecuted and threatened by the Saddam Hussein regime, refugees from South Africa, including the great campaigner against apartheid, founder of the Wales anti-apartheid movement, who you knew, Hanif Bamji, sadly no longer with us, but buried in Cardiff. Palestinians.
How's that anti-apartheid movement going? How's that anti-apartheid movement going now, eh? Killed a boa.
Syrians, and recently some 8,000 Ukrainians and many others.
As I said, you mentioned Palestinians there, ladies and gentlemen. Should be very, very concerned. Should be very, very concerned. Especially if you're a person that likes going to, music festivals and stuff like that. You should be very, very concerned. We should be very, very concerned because we could very well be seeing on the streets of Wales very soon the continued globalising of the Intifada that so many coloured-haired lunatics will blindly cheer for their own destruction. So, where the Welsh government focused on, you might be asking? Where are the Welsh government putting their focuses on? Obviously, nation of sanctuary. And what are they spending your money on is the biggest thing. Well, they should really expose to you, ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to go through now, the far-left lunatics that we have in government with the millions of pounds that they are spaffing on more bureaucracy and sacrificing just people like you and me economically and culturally to their gods of net zero and anti-racism and stuff like that, their pagan sun gods of climate change. So, for example, at a time when the NHS is some of the worst performing NHSs in the country, at a time when Senedd members are warning of NHS funding pain, but spending an eye-watering £642,000 making museums anti-racist. That means it's making museums, in many instances, factually incorrect. Because history is not pleasant. History is not pleasant. And all these people are trying to do is distort history even more for their own political gain. So Dawn Bowden's, should surprise you, Dawn Bowden has very short, very bright coloured hair. Not befitting of a lady of her age bracket either, but it's either here or there. Anti-racist museum fund angered our followers. This is from Doge Wales. Yet she also warned of painful NHS funding decisions thanks to a £1.2 billion budget shortfall. So we have a £1.2 billion budget shortfall, but yet we're spaffing 642,000 to deliberately distort history. Here's Ms. Bowden for you, ladies and gentlemen.
But be under no illusion, in preparing the 24-25 budget, ministers had to make the most stark and painful choices in the devolution era. This has been rehearsed many times on the floor of this Senedd, and we have explained about the need for us to reduce budgets in areas to enable us to fully fund the NHS and frontline public services. £1.2 billion funding gap due to this mismanagement of the economy by the UK Tory government and 14 years of austerity. We've awarded 642,000.
I love how, even in the... Oh, there we go. So this is where she's getting into the second part of the clip now. So I love how even when one of the big arguments for devolution, correct me if I'm wrong, was that we were going to have greater control over this and stuff like that, right? Yet we still blame the UK government for everything. When they've, at least as far as I know, told us now, because we wanted devolution, and we have devolved government to Cardiff, that all these problems, they're your problems. You wanted a separate devolved government, so they're your problems now. But this is me again. I don't want to defend the Tories because I hate the Tories. I hate the Tories as a person with more conservative leanings because they're not a conservative party. They're a liberal party. So all of this, projection of the Tories are their actual enemy. No, they're all in bed together. They're all in bed together, and it's pure projection. It's pure projection. They're making you think that they're fighting each other, when in reality they're having this big, play fight in the middle of Parliament, because they're all enriching themselves off the back of it. They're all enriching and empowering us off the back of it and bringing in the globalist agenda, which is what all of them are tailored towards. So then they're blaming the fucking Tories for when we have our own devolved government. So you do have to take into account, when are we going to take some responsibility? When are we going to take some responsibility? When are our own politicians going to take responsibility for the situation that's been created? But yet, more of these solutions that are coming up at the moment, especially from the Plaid Cymru types and stuff like that, is we need to separate more and more and more. So if you separate more and more and more, are you going to continue to blame the Tories more and more and more? Is that what you're going to do? You have to laugh, otherwise you'll cry. But here you go, ladies and gentlemen. The second part of this clip is her talking about awarding £642,000 to make museums, quote-unquote, anti-racist.
Austerity. We've awarded £642,000 via the Anti-Racist Wales Culture, Heritage and Sport Fund to museum sector organisations, and that funding specifically is to work with local museums to support them through training, mentoring, grants to reflect and represent Black, Asian and minority ethnic communities' histories.
I said to deliberately distort history, to indoctrinate them into museums which will now deliberately distort history.
And cultures in their collections, displays, events and learning programmes. And we're already seeing that that funding is leading to a change in the way that local museums are operating. For example, a number of local museums have conducted reviews of their collections to identify items that can help tell a more honest reflection of the locality's history, and training sessions have built greater understanding in both amongst museum staff and volunteers around engaging new audience and co-creating with diverse communities.
So we then, either one way or not, admitting that our history then, again, has been one great giant lie. But of course, no, they're now trying to deliberately confuse people by lying about history, lying about the Cheddar Man, for example, in order to discredit Brexit, which if you listen to one of my other episodes where we talk about Tom Rousel, who very eloquently explained that. But then we have, for example, the example I'm going to get to later on of the Clachaig Man in Arran in Scotland. We have a generated image of that, represented images of what he likely would have looked like from 5,500 to 6,000 BC, I believe. It says YBP. I've never seen YBP be used before. Maybe this is what they are focused on, all these far-left agendas, anti-racist being one of them, because all they want to do is cater to the new Welsh that they see coming in. The new Welsh. Not the old Welsh, the, dare I say, actual Welsh people, who have generations that run back in this land, potentially even thousands of years. Many areas around here, for example, are farming areas where people have owned the farms for many, many, many generations. The roots go back in this land as far as the trees. No, of course, they want to appeal to the new votes that have been ushered in across the channel, because those are who they're banking on to ensure that they stay in electoral power. So now they're literally doing everything possible, not to make a difference, positive difference for the Welsh people and for Wales as a country, but to destroy it, to appeal to people that they are banking on will keep them in power. The new people coming across that will vote for the government that allowed them to come here and turn Wales, turn Cardiff into Paristan that we saw last night. They also are very big on funding the Sodom and Gomorrah Cymru grants and the Sodom and Gomorrah Cymru events. So Supreme Court ruling, as you know, for recently, ruled in favour of biological reality. And that is that men are men, women are women, and a male and female are immutable. You cannot change, for example, your sex from male to female. Not Pride Cymru, obviously. Not Pride Cymru, which is on the face of every bus, every bloody public amenity at the moment. Not them, of course. They called for immediate action, quote-unquote, in response. And here, Senedd member Hannah Blythen, who should, not surprise you, has pronouns in her bio. Liberal women, as I said, will be the downfall of this country, ladies and gentlemen. In this instance, boasting of funding the Pride Cymru Sodom and Gomorrah events.
We will be making £25,000 of new funding available for Pride Cymru this year, and we'll be embedding this support and more in the future. Importantly, alongside this, we will also be establishing a new Wales-wide Pride Fund to support grassroots events across the country. We will support small...
Notice as well, ladies and gentlemen, as you'll be able to see on the freeze frame here, that Hannah here is not wearing the pin of her country, but is wearing the pin of her religion. That should tell you a lot. That should tell you a lot. For those who are listening, not watching, ladies and gentlemen, it appears to be a pride pin. Okay, you can see the distinctive outline of the triangle. She'll happily wear and tout a symbol of child mutilation and castration before she would be, for example, to wear a pin with the flag of the country that she's supposed to represent. That should tell you a lot, ladies and gentlemen. That little bit there, that little observation, should tell you a lot about the state of our political representation. These people will put their ideology, and I described it as a religion because these people adhere to it with a religious zealotry. But despite many of them will say that they're non-religious. They're not non-religious. Nobody, in a way, is non-religious because everybody believes something, right? Everybody believes something. But will happily tout their support for this, pagan child mutilation, sacrificing to the gods of gender ideology, pin and badge, but not seemingly, or at least not before or not after wearing a badge for the country and the people that she was to represent. This is troubling, ladies and gentlemen.
Smaller movements to thrive and to help ensure that every LGBTQ+ person can take part in what Prides have to offer. Further information about the new funding will be published as soon as possible, and I will share that information with members and organisations when available. This builds on our record of support for the LGBTQ+ community here in Wales, from pushing forward with curriculum reform that embeds LGBTQ+ education to establish...
And there is another big important point, is that the target is your children, ladies and gentlemen. And make no mistake, we're seeing the lunacy with what was happening in America, where you had outright pornographic books in schools. Now, they wouldn't be marketed or labelled as pornographic books, but they would have both visual and wordy descriptions of certain acts that, homosexual couples will perform, and contain, drawings of such things, normalizing this not being shown to children, but children also being characters in these books, in some instances, as far as I'm aware. Have books like Genderqueer, for example, which is a common one that was getting a lot of traction, I believe, last year, maybe even the year before, when the height of this madness was really rearing its ugly head. Tim Pool, for example, had a guest on his podcast. I can't remember her name, very far left activist. And he was literally saying, look, if I was to hold up this book and show it to the camera, I would not be able to put this video on YouTube because it would get demonetized. It would get taken down. It wouldn't just get demonetized, it would get taken down because of the stuff that was in that book. And that was stuff that was in the classrooms and libraries of children's schools. I'm not just talking, when you get to college or when you get to university. No, children. When they say we want to embed this in the education, make no mistake, they mean it. I work in an establishment. I work in an educational establishment. I work in a college in Wales. Make no mistake, they mean it. It's already here. It's already here. They've already been targeting children right from the get-go. You know, at the event we had for new learners, September last year, you had students walking around with pronoun badges and stuff like that were issued by the college. You had all this stuff, the rainbow lanyards and all this stuff. They've had the drag queen story hours. I've got more anecdotes that I'd really like to share in the future. Got more anecdotes that I'd really like to share in the future, but I'm not going to share them at the moment because they're not mine. They're not mine, and I don't necessarily want to bring the person whom I've been talking to about these things, because it's something that really fills me with a little bit of hope for this country, is that the young people do see it. Young people, young men in particular, are seeing it. They're seeing it more and more and more. And they switched on, let me tell you. Don't discount the next generation yet. They're switched on. They're switched on. They see what's going on. But all of this, in order to wage war on the family, in order to make men and women in conflict with each other, you know, distorting history, all of these things through the feminism movement. That's ultimately what all of this goes back to anyway. It's the feminism movement at the end of the day. And that goes back then to simply just being in opposition pretty much to Christ. Pretty much in opposition to Christ. But anyway, that's a story for another time. But point being is those anecdotes, they're not mine to share. They're not mine to share. They're very, very troubling. And I'll see if I can share them in the future. Of how not only is this being incentivized, in many ways it's being forced. It's being done through force and coercion, which I'll go through in a later episode if I can. Make no mistake, the children are the target. So you as the parent, it's me speaking directly to you. Either the would-be parent or the current parent. You need to be taking an interest. If you're politically apathetic and don't care about politics or something like that, well, you can't afford to be anymore. I used to be like that. I used to be like that all throughout school. You know, never cared about politics, never cared about that, never wanted to get involved with it, never wanted to know. But it's us sticking our heads in the sand. It's us not taking this stuff seriously that has allowed it to get this far. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting something to change. So sooner or later, we're going to have to step up. We're going to have to confront some grim realities. We're going to have to confront some grim realities, question a lot of things that we previously used to believe, and really start making some positive changes. And it's going to be a fight. It's going to be a war. Make no mistake about it. It's going to be a war against yourself as much as it's a war against anybody else or anything else. It's going to be a war against your own mind and how the programming that you've been indoctrinated into over generations. But it has to be done. It will be done one way or another. One way or another. Certain things of this are outside of our direct control. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, the Welsh government sacrificing everything, the country and the people, to their pagan deity gods. And obviously the number one pagan deity god at the moment, I had a conversation on X with somebody recently about this, with the prime farmland that they're covering over with solar panels seemingly at every bloody opportunity, is the pagan god of climate change, the pagan sun god that's going to come down and kill us all, even though we were told that it's going to melt the ice caps, but the ice caps have actually been growing recently. Oh, work that out. How about carbon? We need to wage war on carbon, but carbon dioxide in particular is only 0.3 to 0.4 of the atmosphere, and plants are going through carbon drought at the moment. And when we were actually creating more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, you had more greening across the planet. Oh, work that one out, because plants take in carbon dioxide and spit out oxygen. Oh, all of a sudden, everything starts to fall apart. But again, people adhering to this like a religion, including spending £32 million to institute a blanket 20 miles per hour road policy, 20 miles per hour speed limit road policy, which we were told was going to improve safety, it was going to do all these good things, the Welsh are behind it, even though they weren't. And they took this one town in which they were like, yeah, we love this policy, you know, and it was like, this is reflective of the entire Welsh country. But no, of course, it was always about tackling climate change. It was always about dealing with the pagan sun god. Please don't give us a slightly warmer than lukewarm summer, you know. True net zero zealotry on another level here in Wales. as Senedd member, Ms. Julie James, will inform us of.
The climate emergency demands that we abandon this misguided thinking. The climate emergency demands that we abandon this misguided thinking. That's why we announced a freeze on road building and established the Roads Review Panel. Road building will no longer be the default response. Instead, existing infrastructure...
Oh, don't worry, lady. The people who are waiting on the M4 relief road have already found that out. We've known that for a long time.
...to create new bus and cycle lanes that give people a viable and attractive alternative is what we champion. Yesterday, we laid legislative changes to reduce the default speed limit on Welsh roads from 30 miles an hour to 20 miles an hour. This change would be world-leading. The climate emergency demands that we abandon...
No, it won't. The Welsh government thinking that anything that they do is going to be world-leading. Outside of the fact that Keir Starmer has said that he's liking the way Wales is going, he wants England to follow suit. So we're actually leading the way in that regard, I suppose. Okay, in a way, I suppose you could say that we are world leading in everything that's going wrong with the world at the moment. Because Keir Starmer is looking at us and saying, yeah, I want to take England down the way that Wales is going. And the world does not have any reason to be jealous of Wales at the moment. From healthcare to roads to public policy to the state of governance to everything, freedom of speech, the lack of right to bear arms, the state that the cities are in with Swansea and Cardiffistan. Honestly, truly, truly awful stuff. And one thing that's been exposed recently, which really hammers this home, is how much the Welsh Sewage Regulator blows on DEI policies, blowing £134,000, I believe, every year. So Natural Resources Wales, which is the Welsh Government's regulator responsible for sewage discharge in Wales, has failed. Of the top 20 most polluted rivers in Britain, 5 are located in Wales. Now, a little bit of napkin math. 20 and 5 are located in Wales. That's a solid quarter of the most polluted rivers located in Wales. But it's quite surprising then that Natural Resources Wales has the money, time, and the ability to prioritise this diversity, equity and inclusion to the tune of £140,000 a year. But, oh yeah, they do. So giving you an example now, ladies and gentlemen, when asked how much they spend on DEI officers across their organisation, they confirmed they employ a, quote, lead specialist advisor for diversity and inclusion at a grade 7. Grade 7, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, results in a total annual remuneration? I believe that means total salary, basically, is about £71,381. Oh boy. Imagine that. Lead specialist advisor for diversity and inclusion. Basically, you being the lead specialist advisor for telling white people that they have unearned privilege and black people that they need everything done for them because they have suffered systemic injustices and the actual, Britons were black and all of this stuff, and we need to bow down and they deserve to be worshipped as gods and we need to kiss their feet and so on. If you're Glenn Greenwald, anyway. But anyway, that's not all. That's not all. They also employ a, quote, specialist advisor people management for grade 6 with total remuneration of £62,974. They admit this employee works closely with the diversity and inclusion advisor and so should fall within the scope of our request. This means Natural Resources Wales spends £134,355 at the moment, at least what's been uncovered, on DEI staff, which is, again, DEI, there's a reason people called DEI didn't earn it. Didn't earn it because you were given that role simply because of something immutable that you had no control over, and competence was not in any way factored in. This is unforgivable. Natural Resources Wales was set up by the Welsh Government to oversee environmental regulation in Wales. As we see sewage discharges from into our rivers and seas, it's not doing its job. Discharges are worse in Wales than anywhere else in Britain. And nobody has scrutinised it, seemingly. Nobody has held it to account because they're embedding this very same ideology in at the top levels of government. So they're seeing this top-down tyranny going into the sewage disposal system, which is resulting in rivers in Wales becoming some of the most polluted in the country. And they see it, boom, because they're prioritising diversity, equity and inclusion. Again, that octopus that Doge Wales often talks about a lot, that octopus analogy with how all these charities and NGOs all relate back to the Welsh Government, really comes to mind when you see this kind of stuff. It's just a good way to virtue signal, but it distracts from its core functions. And that's why we demand that it must go. So, for example, ladies and gentlemen, there's a letter here. So this is a Freedom of Information request, I believe. So the response, for example, Lead Specialist Advisor for Diversity and Inclusion, Grade 7, and Specialist Advisor People Management, Grade 6, are included in this. And on 37 hours a week, you then have, there we are, Grade 7. You're looking at about an annual total, again, of about 71,381. And then 62,974 for the grade 7 and grade 6 respectively. DEI is very, very expensive, ladies and gentlemen, not just in the functions that it lets down, but the actual cost to the Welsh taxpayer as well. Obviously, what is the main priority at the moment for the Welsh Government? What are they pretty much solely focused on? Virtue signalling, yes. Taking everything they can from the Welsh taxpayer and leaving them with nothing in return, yes. But ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, it all comes down to them wanting every single little privilege and every single little bit of easy life for themselves whilst they impoverish and make the life difficult of every other Welsh person who they believe is an evil oppressor, but also representative of a, inherent oppressor class, but also an underclass to be despised. So the Plaid Cymru MS Heledd Feichen, for Plaid Cymru, it should not surprise you, bemoaned her, quote, unpredictable working hours on the BBC. Just said hybrid working, which allows her to work from home, has to be maintained, quote unquote, despite the fact that she says herself she lives very close to the Senedd and that it's actually quite workable for her. Worth remembering, ladies and gentlemen, also that outside of a few extra committees per week, the Senedd sits just 2 days per week. But yet these people are bemoaning unworkable and unpredictable working hours and thus need to be maintained hybrid working commitments.
As it is not family friendly to the degrees it could be. I think hybrid working has been a huge benefit that has to be maintained, and that's made a huge difference for anyone with caring responsibilities. We have unpredictability in terms of hours, which doesn't help. I'm very fortunate. I live close to the Senedd in Pontypridd, so I get to go home every night. I don't have the hours of travel that some of my fellow members do. As it is.
The amount these people are getting paid every single year, being able to maintain good family relation should not be a problem. Obviously, economics is one of the big things that puts stress on families. The economy that we've created, largely because we decided we had to shoehorn women into the workplace and stuff like that, has created now this environment where people have put undue stress on themselves because now they're both taxable units, because now you don't have one parent in the home taking care of the kids and stuff like that. It does make it a lot harder, but everything that we've geared towards, because we've fallen for this psyop that the ultimate thing, for example, that in particular for women could be is to be a taxable unit and in submission to your boss. Okay, so rather than being, for example, as St. Paul would say, submitting to your husband who would take care of all this stuff, no, that's obviously misogynistic and stuff like that. No, you're going to submit to Mr. McGillicuddy for a wage of pushing PowerPoints and pushing papers and stuff like that, right, and pushing pens. So we unnecessarily put this stress on ourselves by creating the economy that we did. And now, the MSs, who are the many instances the privileged class, they have the ability to affect policy that's going to affect mine and yours that necessarily they don't have to follow. So now you're stuck with the 37 hours or maybe even 50, 60 hours, whatever it is, working arrangement per week. Both of you working, nobody taking care of the kids, so they get left in the school system to be indoctrinated into this left-wing ideology. You then say, you want to go, okay, is there any hybrid working arrangement? Well, if you're a truck driver, for example, good luck doing some kind of hybrid working arrangement, as if you're going to be, what's the video game called? I've forgotten the video game. Give me 2 seconds. As if you're going to be doing your shifts on Eurosim or something like that. You're going to be there in your bedroom with your wheel and your gear stick and your McDonald's or your big pizza on the side delivering, maybe with the advent of self-driving fucking cars, maybe, and, driverless cars, maybe we will see that. Maybe every little truck driver at this point will be some, 25-year-old in their bedroom on bloody Eurosim. I've got to find the name of the video game. Give me 2 seconds, ladies and gentlemen. Euro Truck Simulator. That was it. Euro Truck Simulator. So again, as if people are going to be doing it on Euro Truck Simulator, that's how you're going to be doing your deliveries and stuff like that. No, of course not. Point being, no, of course not. You're working a regular job. No, you've got no chance of hybrid working arrangements and stuff like that. And if you were, you'd be laughed out of the room by your boss. But no, when it comes to MPs and MSs who are getting paid ridiculous money and do barely any work, ultimately, seemingly, as it is, for the important roles that they do, no, of course, they need crashes, they need more working hours, and despite, again, only sitting 2 days a week, for the most part. Truly, truly awful. And then you have Jane Hutt, for example, admitted that supporting Senedd members, well, as I said, surely would be the most people in society that if they needed childcare support would be able to afford it. But no, they need it, of course, at taxpayer expense. And that's what the Senedd is now pushing forward as of today. This is as of today, this morning. Jane Hutt has admitted supporting politicians with their childcare is, quote, a priority of the Welsh Government. Why should taxpayers pay for this? We say fund our NHS instead. Absolutely, but of course, priorities of the Welsh Government are distinctly rules for thee, not for me, also benefits for me and not for thee.
The Senedd Commission is going to consider specifically what it can offer to members of the Senedd in terms of support with childcare. It's a priority, of course, of the Welsh Government, but that's going to be part of taking part of engaging with party groups. Also looking at ways of working and including, we know that hybrid has been a positive move forward for all members of the Senedd. We need to look at use of technology to extend access, and as well as the work that we're doing on job showing. But I will again mention the Independent Remuneration Board because they're reviewing its determination and they're looking at flexibility for members in terms of their differing and evolving needs.
Again, when are people going to look at the evolving and differing needs of the Welsh people? Such as, not being ethnically replaced in their homeland and actually being able to have families and not having the lush green farmland and valleys land taken over by solar panels. And, then they're going to start dimming the sun. They put solar panels everywhere and then say they're going to start dimming the fucking sun. Yeah, of course. The fact of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, you have to wonder who's in control. You have to wonder not only who's in control of the politicians, but who is in control of other things as well. So we have, for example, an admittance now that we've known a long time, this is not just relating to Wales, this is relating to UK as a whole, that the UK prison system has been lost. The UK prison system is a lost cause. It has been lost to Islamic gangs. And I hate the term Islamist, that's why I don't want to use it, because ultimately all quote-unquote Islamists follow the same ideology that quote-unquote peaceful Muslims do. And that is obviously the clue is in the name, Islam. So you have paedophile inmates, for example, converting to Islam, not out of faith, but for survival. This is from Mario Nowfall on X, by the way, under the wing of Islamist prison gangs. According to former Governor Ian Akeson, the old prison hierarchy is gone. Child sex offenders now walk free in general population if they've got gang protection. Meanwhile, staff are being scolded with kettles, CCTV doesn't work, and Islamist radicals get phones, friends, and freedom inside high-security jails. So Robert Jenrick was reporting on this, I believe, and GB News GB News was reporting on it, but Robert Jenrick was there giving this monologue to the camera. Prison officers are one bad day away from getting murdered on shift and no one's in charge. Well, we know that because Axel Rudakabana recently threw scalding water over the face of, or over a guard, severely injured him, and he didn't even get his canteen privileges revoked. We're such a cucked country, it's ridiculous. But we've known now that the prison system has been lost for a long time. But nobody wants to talk about it because you cannot talk. Or you can, but nothing will be affected, and you'll more likely be arrested if you dare say anything about the loss of the prison systems, and that, you know, paedophiles, which in theory used to be the wretches of society, and that everybody, the one thing that everybody would sort of, regardless of political persuasion, be united around would be the despising of people that would want to do this evil shit to young children. Well, now that's done under the guise of empathy and tolerance and being bold and being kind and being you under the Pride movement. And obviously it's justified by this religion because they follow the example of their pedo prophet. But as we've known for a long time, the prison systems have been lost. And it's very, 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 very sad to see because the taxpayer, again, funds or foots the bill.
We have a major problem with Islamist gangs in our prisons. Through appeasement and weak leadership, they've been able to take control of prison wings. There are reports of Sharia courts enforced by floggings and beatings. The Times reports that separation centres designed to contain the people capable of radicalisation are now being used as shelters from the people that they're targeting. Paedophiles and serial killers like Levi Belfield are converting to Islam for protection. Prison officers even say that sniffer dogs in the unit that contained the Manchester Arena plotter, Hashim Abedi, were called off for fear of offending Muslim terrorists. The public expect the government to act. It's time...
Actually, this is the big point that he's hammering on here now, is the big point of being scared to offend because we now become such a politically correct Politburo-run society. This is now happening because we are scared to offend. Imagine now not speaking out again about paedophile grooming gangs, about dangers of Islam, all of these things because you were scared to offend. But it's not just that simple. So obviously, offence now carries a whole litany of different things. You've got to be careful you don't go to prison yourself if you risk offending the wrong person now. If you risk offending the wrong paedophile prophet and his followers. You've got to be scared if you accidentally offend the pink-haired trans-inclusory feminist girl, because she could easily say that it was a hate crime and you'll get thrown in prison, especially if you're a white cisgender man, you know? But this is what it results in. It results in sniffer dogs not going into where the Manchester Arena bomber was because they're scared to offend, and obviously you can't have dogs anywhere around Muslims because obviously they see them as filthy. I have a dog just down to my right here, and I would sooner say that a Muslim is filthier than her. But anyway, who I might end up going to prison now. Who knows?
And that they reclaimed control of our prisons. That's why I went to see Ian Aitchison, a former prison governor, an expert on extremism in our jails.
We've got about 230 terrorist offenders. We've got a larger subset of prisoners who are deemed to be at risk of being radicalised. And we've also got them in very close proximity to more traditional, if you like, organised crime gangs that are controlling the drugs trade in prisons. And where those two groups are together, it's absolutely rational to think that they will cooperate in some way. And then you've got a very serious problem. And I don't think there are sufficient protections in place to prevent that from happening.
And just the other day, we heard Axel Rudakabana, the Southport killer, who's here at Belmarsh, allegedly attack prison officer with boiling water in a kettle. How is that even possible?
This is, a wretched young man who has committed acts of extreme violence in a pre-planned way, and who, as far as we know, because obviously it's still going through court, ambushed a prison officer and seriously injured them. So why he was in a position where apparently no account was taken of the extreme and obvious risk he poses is a question that, the Ministry of Justice should be answering.
And is this the prison government?
Because you cannot offend people, Mr. Aitchison. As you said, you cannot offend people. Cannot offend people by saying, for example, the Clachaig Man in Arran, Scotland, Neolithic, wasn't a black person, wasn't a black man. So, for example, this has been a reconstruction based on the skull of a man that has been found in Arran, Scotland from the Neolithic period, assuming it means about 5,500 to 6,000 BC, I'd imagine. It was unearthed in a chambered cairn near Clachaig, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Falls, in the Isle of Arran, Scotland. He was a young Neolithic farmer, from what we know. Skull found among 14 others with artifacts like pottery and a stone axe reveals a life of early agriculture and ritual burial. Now, this is from an X account, and this is apparently a reconstruction that's been published. So again, going back to where we were talking about, did black people build Stonehenge and were the ancient Britons black and stuff like that? The answer, ladies and gentlemen, is no. But you already knew that. You already knew that. It's been a very, very intensive propaganda effort to make you forget it. Intensive propaganda effort as well that's led some people, in a completely unrelated note, and this is where we're going to end today's conversation on, has led to think that they can say whatever they want with impunity. Now, obviously, I'm a very big free speech guy. But free speech does not allow you to go into public and call somebody a paedophile without evidence, just as a completely unfounded allegation, and expect to have no consequence for it. Because that's libel. And that is you're attempting to destroy somebody. That accusation could result in them being killed, because somebody could obviously come over, hear that, if they believe it straight off the bat, and kill them. But obviously, if it's your political opponent, then at the minute, it seems all gloves are off. But this was very satisfying to see, because a woman, I'm not sure who this person is, his name is Charlie Veitch, or Charlie Veitch, appears to be a citizen journalist of some kind. He's recording this incident where it appears to be some kind of demonstration. There appears to be what looks like a Palestinian watermelon terror flag in the background and stuff like that, right? But this woman, it's quite clearly a liberal woman, comes up to him and calls him a nonce. Now, if you've never heard that term before, ladies and gentlemen, nonce is a British term, a slang term for pedo. If you're calling somebody a nonce, you're saying that they're a paedophile. It's used, in a joking context some of the time as well, but not always. If somebody means it in a sincere way, we know that means that they're being genuine, So the person comes up and calls him a nonce. This woman comes up and calls him a nonce. And there's tons of police around. And this is where, again, due to the two-tiered system, these people have now been made to feel emboldened in such a way that they feel as though they can do whatever the hell they want. And they can say whatever the hell they want with impunity. And it was just very satisfying to see this lady calling this man completely unfoundedly a nonce in front of many, many public, get her comeuppance extremely quickly. And you can see the expression on her face change very quickly. So here you go, ladies and gentlemen. Here's a lovely bit of instant karma for calling a man completely unfoundedly a paedophile in public.
A nonce.
Sorry?
A nonce.
Whoa, what did you just call me?
A nonce. Well, sorry, can I have this lady arrested?
So here you go. And you can see her, he's surrounded by people. And I'll play this bit for you one more time, ladies and gentlemen, because the first time she says it is off camera. She calls him a nonce, and it's very audible. If you're listening, just listen out. I know it's a little bit of thing with all the noise in the background, but have a listen.
Nonce.
There.
Sorry? Whoa, what, you just call me? Well, sorry, can I have this lady arrested? She just called me a... I've got it on video. Can you arrest her?
And look how quickly it's changed.
You just called me...
She's expecting him to be arrested.
Can you take her away? Sorry, can you take her... You can't call people that. You cannot call people that. You can't call people that. Yeah, you can't call people that. No. Yeah, I've got it on video. Yeah.
So they...
Sure, no problem. I'm happy.
Let's just get this sorted out.
Happy to provide everything.
Is he doing other stuff at the moment? You can see.
No, I totally understand. No. But I've got it on video, her saying it right to my face, so it's a public order offence. I hope she gets arrested.
So there we are. It was very nice to see, and I just want to go back one moment with a freeze frame. So, ladies and gentlemen, we went very quickly from this to this. And then just as quickly from that. Again, she's been very confused as to what was going on. Then to being very confused as to, oh shit, I'm suffering the consequences of my actions. Again, hopefully, again, I want to have faith in the police. Everybody wants to have faith in the police, right? They make it very, very difficult sometimes. I remember last time we covered the incident where they pepper sprayed, beat, and tased a 92-year-old dementia patient with, I believe he had COPD and emphysema and stuff like that as well. I believe he had several other conditions that later led to complications, and he ended up losing his life 3 weeks after that incident, Mr. Donald Burgess. Yeah, the incident that we covered, which was rather hilarious, of the two female officers trying to break down the door and failing very embarrassingly, whilst the male officer in the troop just could do nothing but stand there and watch. And then you had the police officer that we covered before, which said letter rot about the vulnerable teenager. Police are making it very hard to take any sort of sympathetic outlook with them at the moment, especially when they will go as far as arresting 10-year-old boys. And this is where we're going to leave it for today. I was going to leave it with that clip, but we want to see some faith back in the police. But when they do things like this and they make it so embarrassing and they make themselves come across as so evil, it makes it very difficult. So this is, I'm not sure where this video is from, ladies and gentlemen, but they actually did arrest a 10-year-old boy. You can see this 10-year-old boy here in handcuffs.
He's a little 10-year-old boy. Don't cry. Don't cry.
So if you're looking on screen, ladies and gentlemen, this young 10-year-old boy is in tears because this grown man with a badge has arrested him.
I've got him on video.
But you can see here, if I pause it and come back, you can see here, ladies and gentlemen, his hands are together. Maybe the officer mistook him for a very vertically challenged man, maybe. But look, you can see here, just in the corner here, you can see the cuff wrapping around here. This kid is genuinely, this isn't playing around, you know, as far as I know. See, there you go. You can see it there. His hands are tied together. His hands are tied together. You can see it right there. This is the British police. This is indicative of a large number of the British police. And they wonder why they get called bullies. They wonder why they get called all these different names, pigs, all stuff like that. they they make it very, very hard to be on their side, as much as we might want to be. As much as we might want to be. But anyway, that'll do it for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for watching, listening. Hope you found it useful. Hope you have a good morning, afternoon, evening, night, wherever you are. Diolch yn fawr for watching. Hwyl fawr, see you next time. And Godspeed. And happy Sodom and Gomorrah Awareness Month.